Welcome to a world where particles, vibrations, and light collide, a place where leading industry experts and healers come together to discuss controversial topics that will challenge your beliefs and expand your mind. From quantum physics to metaphysics, no topic is off limits, but this is not your typical podcast.
I'd like to know if you could give us some pointers on dealing with the triggers.
Well, remember, you can't get triggered unless you have a belief that you can be triggered, right? The triggers happen when we feel like we have no control. The triggers happen when we feel like we're a victim. The triggers happen when we feel like somebody's in our space, right? Those are all triggers. And so if you understand, if you're able to stay in the space of, it's an interesting thought you've got.
It's a show guaranteed to make you question your assumptions and push you to expand your horizons. For those who are already fascinated or passionate about the work of Patti Conklin, this show will give you an inside look into the mind of one of the industry's most renowned figures in vibrational mediation. With over 28 years of experience and a long list of big-name collaborations, Patti's insights and perspectives will inspire and challenge even the most seasoned practitioners. And if you're the skeptic who doesn't believe in vibrational mediation, this show is for you. Healers, doctors, and scientists are just a few of the professions represented by our fascinating visitors that bring their unique perspective to every episode. Join us on this journey into the world of healing within and adventure inside. Our mission is to inspire, challenge, and enlighten our audience with thought-provoking conversations and fascinating guests from a wide range of fields who can shed new light on important issues facing society today. Join us for each episode if you're ready to explore and learn about the latest developments at the intersection of cutting-edge science, spirituality, and self-improvement. Enter a world where waves, particles, and light all meet. Enter the world of healing within and adventure inside.
Hi, everyone. It's Patti Conklin, and you're on an episode of Healing Within and Adventure Inside. And I'm so thankful that you're here today. And Rabbi, it's so wonderful to have you on. I appreciate you being here and spending time with us today.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So tell us about you. Tell us about you. You're a Chicago boy.
I did. I grew up in Chicago.
Yeah.
On the old South Side, Bad Leroy Brown and me, same neighborhood, right? Maybe you're a little too young for that. Bad boy.
No.
Then after World War II, other groups began moving in, a number of Catholics, some Jews, some what we called in those days Negroes and Mexicans. Obviously, we've become a little more wise since then. But it was a multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multicultural neighborhood. And yet it was what I call a front porch neighborhood. We all sat on our front porches, listening to our little transistor radios, the Chicago White Sox games.
Yeah.
And everybody knew everybody. We were in and out of each other's houses all the time.
Yeah.
If my mother went away to a meeting or to shopping or whatever, on the block, I couldn't get away with anything because once she got home, before she took off her coat, the phone was ringing. Roberta, do you know what Wayne did while you were away?
Oh, yeah. Sounds like the neighborhood I grew up in. Yep.
But it was a fascinating neighborhood because on the playground when we were 4, 5, 6 years old, we all played together.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to the public schools and the Catholic kids went to the local parish school. And by the time I was 8 or 9, I was being beaten up on a regular basis by my friends who had learned from their priests and nuns that I, Wayne Dosick, had personally killed their Lord.
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
I want to show you how far we've come in terms of what I call radical loving, which is the title of the book that we're here to talk about a little bit.
Yes.
Notice how I threw that in, right? So
awesome.
When I was about 15 or so, in one of the change class periods in high school, you know, the 4 minutes you have to get from the first floor gym to the 5th floor study hall, this girl runs up to me and said, Wayne, I forgive you. And, you know, there were probably some girls in that school who had reason to forgive me for something, but she wasn't one of them. So I said, Bonnie, what is it? And she said, I forgive you for killing Christ. I said, what are
Oh
you
my
talking about?
goodness.
What are you talking about? That was 2,000 years ago. I wasn't there. I didn't know him. He was a nice Jewish boy who made good. What are you talking about? She said, no. I just heard on my radio that the Pope said we could forgive the Jews for killing Christ. That, of course, was John the 23rd and Vatican II.
Yep.
Move forward another couple decades, and I'm a rabbi on the faculty of a Catholic university, the University of San Diego here in San Diego. We are a diocesan university, teaching the only courses in Jewish studies in the Department of Religion and Theology.
Wow.
One of my closest, dearest friends in the world is a Jesuit priest. Our bishop was just appointed a cardinal.
Oh
2 days
my
ago.
goodness.
The only North American appointed a cardinal. And at one point, I was invited to preach from the pulpit of the Immaculata. Now,
Wow.
we've come a very, very far way in
Yes.
those 50, 60 years, 60 and more years now, since my 65 years since my early childhood.
Yeah.
So that's a part of who I am and who shaped me, what shaped me and formed me and gave me certain discernments in life. And that's why I know that there is no difference between any of us. And that's
right.
That's the whole key here. And that is that we are all children of the one God. There is one God. There is one world. We are one people. Yes. And this business about discrimination and bigotry and hatred is just our foolishness, our silliness. Because God says, I'm the parent of you all. I love you all. I don't care what you call me. Call me daddy or pops or father. Call me mommy or mama or
right.
I'm your parent. I don't care how you talk to me or approach me. Do it quietly. Do it with a great song and dance. Do it in deep meditation. Do it in however you want to approach me. So right. I want you to know that I love you, and I want you to know that I hope that you love me.
Yeah.
And most of all, I hope you learn to love each other and to protect the beautiful earth, the land, the waters, the seas, the air that I've given you, and learn to live together in harmony and peace, because any differences between you are only perceived by you.
That's right. That's right. Your perception is everything. I mean, I totally agree. We have people calling the office saying, what denomination is she? And my staff answers, doesn't matter what she is, it only matters what you are, because we're going to be working within your belief system, what you feel, because I do believe that there's many different paths to get to God. Whichever one you choose is perfectly okay, as long as we're getting to that one God. Totally agree on that. And I wish more people would really think of it that way and not be so divided and separated in this is the way you have to get there.
Right.
Because there's a lot of that. So how did you keep your optimism as a kid? I mean, growing up in that kind of environment, what made you want to become a rabbi?
Well, what kept up my optimism is
life.
What choice did I have? Give in to despair? That's silly. My original, I haven't thought about this in a long time. You asked very good questions. My original career goal was to be senator from Illinois, governor of Illinois, and president of the United States. And
good goals. Yeah.
And I am a child of the 60s. I'm a child of the civil rights movement, of the feminist revolution, of the anti-war protests, of the drug culture. And America is changing tremendously.
Yes.
And the government beat us up in Grand Park in '68. And the cities burned when Dr. King was killed.
Yes.
And the day that Bobby was killed, I knew that I couldn't do it through the establishment anymore.
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
certainly couldn't do it through the streets anymore. So the pulpit, where I would have a place to preach and lead people, guide people into acts of social justice, prophetic acts of social justice, the way Isaiah and Ezekiel and Jeremiah taught us from the Bible.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
became the career path.
Wow. Wow. And so how long have you been teaching?
Well, I will next year, this exact day, or 2 days from now, next year will be the 50th anniversary of my ordination.
Wow.
So I have been a rabbi now for 49 years. Seminary, it's a long haul. The path to the rabbinate is high school, of course, 4 years of college, and 5 years of seminary. And
Wow.
so all those years I had student pulpits, I taught Hebrew school, I directed youth groups, I helped lead services in other people's synagogues. I had my own student pulpits, so they were like internships. So this has been going on for a long, long time in my life.
Long time. What, when you look at the totality of the many different things you have done since your ordination, is there one thing that really stands out that you feel like was a real step builder for those who were following you and listening and paying attention? Was there one moment in time that just stands out in your mind as one that you felt like you were giving of yourself more than other times? I don't know if I'm phrasing that correctly, but
No, it
just
makes perfect sense. Actually, it's just the opposite for me.
okay.
I'm a creator, not a maintainer. And
Got it.
so I started here in San Diego 3 different congregations. And I taught at the university.
Mhm.
And I had an ongoing newspaper column. And I've had a radio show. And I wrote 10 books. And I've traveled the country speaking and doing workshops and seminars and all those kinds of things. So
Yeah.
I got to do many, many different things with many different audiences, but all the same kind of languaging. Even no, the languaging was different. The messaging was the same. So when, for example, two of my early books, one was called The Business Bible, 10 New Commandments for Bringing Spirituality and Ethical Values into the Workplace. And there I got to speak, and I was invited to speak in the corporate world, in the
Nice.
business world.
Yeah.
And another book was called Golden Rules, the 10 Ethical Values Parents Need to Teach Their Children. There I was invited to speak over and over again in the parenting world.
Yeah.
And so I was able to bring ancient values, Torah values, if you will, Bible values,
Yes.
into a secular arena. So I've been able to do it in the Jewish arena, obviously at the university, in the Catholic arena, in the secular arena, in businesses and corporations, and I just bring the message wherever we go. I wrote a newspaper column. It was a Jewish newspaper, but it was picked up all over. Over the 18 years, I think I wrote something like 400 column articles.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So I was able to make religious, social, cultural, political commentary.
Yeah.
Because my editor gave me free reign and write what you want. So I was able to bring values, cherish, if you will, faith values into the world.
Yeah.
Also I understood from my childhood that I am Jewish at the deep core of my being, and at the same time, I understand that we are all one, and that we have an obligation to each other. So, one of the guiding principles of my life has been to teach, to make the life of another as precious to you as your own,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's a good deal of what we teach in this book, Radical Loving. And another guiding principle has been, show me your glory, God. Show me your glory, so that we know each other, from the depths of our being.
Yeah.
And another principle has been, when in the Bible, when Joseph's brothers finally revealed themselves to him after they had thrown him in the pit and he was in the prison and so on and so forth, and they thought maybe he would take revenge on them, he says, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good.
Yes.
So, for example, back in 1996, in a Southern California wildfire, our house and everything in it burned to the ground.
Oh, goodness.
We lost everything that we had. From the most precious, most expensive 100-year-old Knabe grand piano to every paperclip and thumbtack.
Wow.
And who knows? It seemed at that point that our pain and suffering was perhaps not worth it, right?
Right.
But out of that came a book called When Life Hurts, a book of hope. I wrote that book.
Mm-hmm.
Years later, my publisher forwards to me a letter that had come to the publisher for me. It was on just paper like this, just a piece of paper.
Wow.
And it said, Dear Rabbi Dosick, you don't know me, I don't know you. But I want you to know that I was about to commit suicide. And I had already been to the drugstore and I bought the pills, and I went to the liquor store and I got the liquor and I got a hotel room. And then I went to the bookstore to get a magazine to read after I took the pills and the liquor and I was waiting to die.
Yeah.
And there stacked up was your book, When Life Hurts. Well, my life was hurting. So I bought a copy of your book. I read the book, and I'm still alive to tell you.
Wow. Powerful.
So my house burned down and I lost everything, and that one man's life was saved. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what's in God's plan? And so that's part of what we talk about, part of what we teach.
Yeah. I mean, it's so amazing when people can go through those hardships and know that something good's going to come out of it. And it may not be you directly. It may be someone else. You saved someone's life by writing that book. And even though you had your own hardships, I mean, that's powerful. That says a lot. So talk to me about your latest book. I mean, 10 of them, goodness, we're going to have to talk about those. But what about the latest?
Well, it's called Radical Loving, One God, One World, One People. And it was born out of my deep sadness at looking in the world around us. Mm-hmm. The world that was racism and sexism and misogyny and white supremacy and nationalism and Islamophobia and anti-Semitism and bigotry and hatred, all fueled, if you will, by the rhetoric coming out of the mouths of the highest supposed called leaders of this land. Yeah. And I said to all of us, we can do better than this. We are better than this. And so here's a formula for understanding that we are children of the one God, and the one God loves us, and the one God says to us, don't do this to each other, because you're ruining this beautiful land and this beautiful world and these beautiful human relationships which I gave you. I wrote it as an aspirational book. We can do this. We can do it. And I gave all kinds of examples, obviously, throughout.
Wow.
And then COVID hit.
Oh, goodness.
And all of a sudden, the aspirational ideas were right in our face.
Yes.
And we had to make some decisions. So look at this statement in two different ways. Businesses have to reopen. one statement. Businesses have to reopen because it's the only way I can feed my family, through my dry cleaning store, my pizza parlor, my barber shop. And I need the money to pay the rent and feed my little children.
Yeah.
Or businesses have to reopen because I want to go to the local bar dancing and drinking and have my nails done at the local salon.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So, of course, we have individual rights. We have individual freedoms. And, of course, we regulate them. I stop at a red light so I don't hit your car and kill us both.
Right.
So the question became, my individual rights and freedoms, or the common good, the highest good, the greatest good. Because what had happened was, and this is where we were leading, and this is what COVID put right in our face. The idea of America was that melting pot, that front porch community that I talked about earlier.
Yes.
E pluribus unum, out of many come one. And at certain points in recent history, the 60s and the 70s, and if you want to point to exact times and events, we could do that if you want to go into that. But we changed.
Yes.
And we became a country of me.
Yeah.
Or not me. I'm not the victim of a perpetrator here. I'm the victim. Poor me.
Poor me. Yeah.
And with that, we became a patchwork quilt of special interests.
Yes.
And whose special interest was more important, yours or mine? Mine or yours?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how do we, when we're faced with 20, 30, 100 special interests, how do we choose? How do we decide? And we forgot the common good, the greater good, the greatest good. And so COVID put it in our face. And we make either this decision or that decision, this choice or that choice. We are truly, this is truly a turning point in our history.
Yeah.
I wouldn't quite call it an axial age yet, but it may be.
Yeah.
And we have serious decisions to make.
Yes. And
we see the consequences at this moment of 19 children lying dead before us.
Yes. Yes.
Because an 18-year-old who can't buy a beer can buy an assault rifle.
Yes.
This country has some serious soul searching to do.
Yes.
And it's right in our face right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would argue it's been in our face. I mean, I think that, since we were kids in the 60s and so on, I think it's been in our face. I mean, one of the things that I talk about a lot is that personal responsibility. It's what is my personal responsibility in terms of not me, but the personal responsibility of what I choose to do and how it will affect others. Others aren't my responsibility, but my responsibility lies in knowing what's out there. When I first came out of high school, I oversaw women's literacy programs in 30 countries throughout Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And for me, being from, small town, it was huge. But what I loved and what I would tell my sons years later, if I get out of the big city, no matter what country I'm in, I get out of the big city and I start going into the small villages, people are literally coming out their doors. Do you need any food? Do you need a place to stay? We've got an extra bed here. People literally were opening their arms, not knowing me from anything, all over the world. And I loved it. And I think that, when I was little, I was convinced I'd be a minister. I mean, that's all I wanted, was to have a congregation and have a pulpit and have my place to be. And what I found was, traveling the world, I learned so much more about what other people were that we were losing from the 60s to where we are now. where an 18-year-old can buy an assault rifle without accountability.
Well, you still have a very precious and holy ministry. So wherever that ministry is from. So I want to tell you where I think this all started.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart because I love baseball. When we were kids, we knew all the players. We knew their numbers. I can still tell you the uniform numbers of the 1959 White Sox who won the pennant, the highlight of my childhood.
Uh-huh.
We knew them because they were all part of the team.
Yeah.
And they weren't being paid exorbitant salaries, so they all lived in the community. And some of them during the winter worked at the insurance company or the car dealership. And they all volunteered their time to come to the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts and the Girl Scouts and the synagogue and church parent kids dinners with
Sure.
the autographs. One guy's grandma lived in our neighborhood, and every time he came to visit grandma, he would come to the playground, throw out a couple of balls for us to play with. And once in a while, he even hit the batting practice. We knew them. We loved them. Somebody got traded. It was like the whole city went into mourning.
Yes. Yes.
And then, and I say this very cautiously because America was built on the backs of unions, and unions are great things. But when the players were permitted to form a union and create free agency, then it became not my team, not my city, but my own personal statistics.
Yep.
And so our young people saw the athletes whom they worship as you worship athletes, right?
Yes.
Yes. Say, well, I really don't care about Chicago or Detroit or Cleveland or New York. All I care about is my statistics so I can sell myself to the next city to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
And then you get an athlete who says, I don't care if my bloody footprints are all over the scene. I didn't kill her.
I didn't do it.
I'm just the poor victim, not the perpetrator. And with this came me, and not me, not me, not me. And that, in so many ways, is what broke America.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. And I'm not sure that I've ever talked to someone who put it so eloquently. But yet I totally believe it. It's we've become a victim society. And when I look at sports, which I don't watch because of exactly what you just expressed, people have forgotten how to be themselves and give in their community and be a part of the community. And I loved it when you had awesome people in your neighborhood and they were still awesome people to you, coming over and getting lemonade from your lemonade stand, whatever it was. How do we kind of tying up here, but how do people begin to understand that they're in a me mode? I mean, we can't force them to change, obviously. Decisions are theirs. But how do we present it so that they understand that they're in a victim mode or they're in a me mode?
Well, there are a couple ways, and if you have more time, we'll talk about it. But you and I are each created, all of us, every one of us created in the image of God. Mm-hmm. Not the physical image, of course, but the spiritual image of God.
Sure.
And so if I look into a mirror, I see not only this face, but I see the face of God.
Yeah.
And if I look into your face, I see the face of God.
Yeah.
And if I see the face of God, there's only one possible response, and that is love, 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 love.
Absolutely.
Love and compassion.
Yep.
And so if the teenage clerk in the convenience store can't make change for a $1 bill without using his little computer, we still say that's a child who has the face of God, and I treat that person in a God-like way.
Yes.
So
yes.
I came up with this idea, which I call FANAMI, find a need and meet it. So, for example, when the house burned down, one of the kindest, gentlest, wealthiest men I knew came to me and said, Rabbi, I feel so terrible for you. What's mine is yours. Ask me for anything. Well, that's embarrassing. How am I going to ask him for something? What do I say? Take me to dinner, buy me a suit, build me a house. I mean, what do I say?
Right. What do you
So I
say?
wind up saying nothing.
Yeah.
Now, in the end, he was very kind and generous with us, but we do that. God forbid somebody dies and you say to the mourner, anything you need, I'm here for you. Just call me day or night. Here I am. And what happens? You never get called.
Never get a
So
call.
FANAMI, find a need and meet it. Say, I understand your Uncle Charlie's coming for the funeral. Give me his plane information. I'll go to the airport and pick him up.
Yes.
Or is your good suit still at the cleaners? Give me the tag. I'll go get it. Or don't worry about the kids tonight. I'll take them out for pizza and a movie. I was taught this lesson by my son, who is now close to 50, I guess. He was 5 or 6 at the time. We made it a thing in our household to implement an ancient teaching in modern times. It said of this ancient sage that whenever he went to the market, if he needed a piece of meat, he would buy 2, one for himself and one for the hungry in his neighborhood. A bunch of vegetables, 2, one for himself, one for the hungry.
Yes.
So every time we went to the store, we would buy 1 extra item of non-perishable food. A box of cereal, a box of mac and cheese, can of tuna fish, jar of peanut butter, and not even take it into the house. Just put it in the grocery sack in the trunk. We had 2 or 3 grocery sacks. We take it to the local food pantry.
Yes. Yes.
So one day we're in the store, and I took a box of cereal off the shelf. That was my first mistake. I shouldn't have done that. Should have let him choose. But I said to him, honey, how about this as our food gift this week? Mm-hmm. And he said, no, 5 years old. And I said, why not? And he took it out of my hand, put it back on the shelf, reached up on his tiny little tippy toes, and took another box of cereal. He said, this will be our food gift for the week. And I said to him, honey, what's the difference? He said, look, Dad, there are hungry kids out there too. And kids like sugar frosted flakes better than we like Cheerios. In a second, that child taught me.
Absolutely.
Not a category of people, the poor, the needy, the hungry. He taught me the face of a child.
That's right.
Likes one kind of cereal better than another.
I love it.
And so we do this all the time. You give away old clothes, right? A blouse, a skirt, a pair of pants. Well, if a man needs a pair of pants, he needs a pair of socks too. Right. We're told that in the shelters, the most requested item of clothing is socks.
Is socks.
Followed by underwear and then t-shirts.
Yeah.
So if you collect that clothing, give away an old pair of socks. Or if you think, yeah, I don't want to do that, on your way there, stop at the local store, pick up a pair of socks and give it.
Yeah.
When you go to the hotel, and take your designer shampoo with you, those little bottles that they give out, they don't want you to steal the pillows or the towels, but those little bottles you can take them to the local shelter, or collect them, take them to your local shelter. That's a head wash, 2 or 3 shampoos for somebody who doesn't have any shampoo. Yes. Find a need and meet it. Make the life of another as precious to you as your own, and we begin to understand the common good, the greater good, the highest good.
It's so wonderful, and it's something that I fully support. When my boys were little, we would go to an orphanage and we would get the sex of a child, their size, and their likes, and we would start shopping in October, and we would get them a toy and an outfit, and we would pick a orphanage that needed a computer or whatever and start with that. And as they got older, in their teen years, when they started driving, we had a blast. I would just pull out thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in $100 bills. And the goal was to go out. We'd all go out in the same evening to go out and slip $100 bills in people's, underneath their coffee cup or in their pocket or their shopping cart or whatever, without getting caught. And it was great fun. And so we became that family, and I just cherish them for it, where, they know at Christmas time, you don't get me anything. You tell me what charities you'd like me to support, or if there's a family you'd like me to support, then we work it that way. And it took a long time for the daughter-in-laws to really realize that, yeah, that's what we do as a family within my sons and I. But giving and showing that love and helping people understand that they mean something. They are the like you said, the face of God, and they deserve as much love as you can give, and be a part of that. I love your message. I love your message and fully support it, because we need more of that. And I encourage people to just really pay attention to that. It's one of those things where I want to see people's happiness in my lifetime, not after I die.
Well, it's a wonderful thing your family has done. In Judaism, we call it a mitzvah. It's sometimes translated as a good deed, but it's really a commandment.
Yeah.
This bumper sticker that says, do a random act of kindness. That's nice, but it's not the religious way. The religious way, the faith way, is do an obligated act of kindness, because we are obligated, one human being to another.
Yes.
The text is the corners of the field. If you plant the field and you water the field, and when it comes to harvest, you harvest the field, but you don't let the four corners stay unharvested, because they don't belong to you anymore. You're not the landlord. God is the landlord, the Lord of the land, and those belong to God. And God said they don't belong to you; they belong to the needy, to the hungry in your neighborhood. So no one has to come to you and say, "Oh, please, Mister, please, Mrs., would you give me a handout here? Did you have a good year? Did you have a good crop? Did you make a lot of money? Do you need a tax deduction?" You do it because you're obligated as one human being to take care of another.
Yes, totally agree. On that note, we're going to leave it there, but I would love to have you back on, because I think that what we're talking about is important, and we can expand so much more off of this, of just helping people realize that it isn't about duty. I'm separating obligation and duty. Obligation in terms of our faith and our core of we're obligated to do it, not because we're forced to from society, but because our Father asked it of us. And I think that's important. So, Rabbi,
our father and our mother, because God
our
is
father and our mother. I know.
God is with God is every gender.
God is every gender. And I always say father, and people say, why don't you say mother? And I'm like, because I forget. To me, it's both genders. It's not a gender. So yes, true. Thank you for that. Reverend Wayne Dosick, thank you so much for being a part of today's show. And I can't wait to talk to you again and have some more philosophical discussions here. I appreciate them a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.